Hello, One Forest Focus, as we welcome back one of the most popular Nottingham Forest players this century to discuss next season at his former club. We'll also discuss one of their top young talents and talk coaching back at Lincoln City. Chris Cohen, great to have you with us today. How are you?
Yep, all good. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
No, good to have you with us. Good to have you with us. Is it weird hearing an intro like that where I say you're one of the most popular players of this century? Does that sound strange to you?
Yeah, really strange, given especially what the players are doing now. I'm always very humbled by how many people come up to me and are very kind about my time there. I think I was probably relatable to fans in terms of the way I played and maximum effort. Maybe not always the greatest of quality, but I think fans appreciated the effort and the application, as I do with the players that I work with now and watch now. And as I say to all of them, I always end it with like, enjoy the good times now, because there was it wasn't obviously the greatest period in Forest history that I played for. And now they're going through a real purple patch, which is amazing for supporters that have been waiting a long time for it.
Yeah, looking forward to discussing that. And before we started talking about enjoying the good times, I was flicking through Twitter earlier. There was a photo of you with Andy Reid at Splendour at the weekend, an enjoyable weekend. Reedy was on here last week, and we talked music a little bit, talking he's got some talent. Is there any musical talent in the Cohen family or for yourself to match Reedy?
Absolutely none. No, zero. That was my first festival at 38 years old, and I'm
How was it?
completely converted. Yes, I'm going to try and do like 3 or 4 a month now, hopefully.
Oh, brilliant. Love it. Let's talk a bit about Forest next season then to start with. Like I was saying, actually, I was just recording with David from Radio Nottingham, and we were saying, when we're talking about Forest this summer, it feels quite hard to balance between we need all these players, we've got a lot of work to do, versus we've actually got a really strong 11. We're in Europe, there's a lot of things to be optimistic about. It's quite a split fans down the middle in a sense. How are you viewing next season for Forest?
I just think it's the unknown, isn't it? It's the uncertainty of it all. Obviously losing and potentially losing some big players that have been brilliant for the club over the last year, a couple of years. Always leaves you a little bit nervous about what's coming, what's going to come in to replace. The owner has relentlessly, put money into the football club. So I'm sure, no matter what leaves the football club, with a really good manager in place and an owner that backs the team, with everything that he can, I'm sure they'll come up with some good replacements. And then I just think it's going to be an incredible season, isn't it? No matter what happens, it's like European football for the first time in however many years, decades, and the opportunity to build on last season's Premier League form is really exciting. The concern is extra games, the travel, the Thursdays, the Sundays, that has caught a few clubs out in the past. But I think that teams are probably more prepared for that now, especially watching like Tottenham and Man United last season. I think teams will be really aware that it can happen to any football club. So you have to be prepared in terms of squad size and depth and the way that you use the players that you've got.
I wanted to ask you about taking key pieces out of a jigsaw from your experience. You probably had it in coaching, I'm sure, but thinking back to when you were at Forest, Michail Antonio went after a good season. Britt Assombalonga had terrible injuries. Yourself with injuries, Reedy with injuries. How big a hole could it leave with Ilanga and possibly Morgan going, as much in the dressing room as on the pitch?
It's just all about what comes back in. I think the probably the greatest example of my playing career was when Nicky Shorey was here as left back in a season where we were hoping to go and get promoted, and came in and was the best player in the whole squad by an absolute country mile for a number of games. And then obviously he left in the January to go back to his parent club and wasn't replaced. And that whole, we obviously felt that cost us points over the rest of the season. So it is all about the replacement, always about what comes in, and how quickly they can hit the ground running as well. So it's time will tell, I suppose, is the answer to that.
It's funny the amount of times Nicky Shorey comes up on this podcast. We did one, best ever loan signings. One of me and another lad, we had him as our best ever Forest loan signing. Lewis and McGugan and Kelvin Wilson both referenced him. Did you know how many games he played? Do you remember how many games he played for us?
It'd have been about 8 or something like that, I imagine.
It was 9, yeah, 9 games. It's mad how much of an impact it had, isn't it? Yeah, but you all say about it, so it's interesting, certainly.
I think, as I was saying, I think the impact is because of, after he left, because there wasn't a natural replacement brought in. The team struggled, and people were playing out of position and stuff like that. And obviously Nigel was a brilliant chairman, brilliant person, and would have wanted to bring him back or keep him, and then he wasn't able to for a number of reasons we probably don't know. And then we couldn't quite find the right replacement at the right time. We're left back is and always will be the hardest place to find replacements and find people that are able to do it consistently. We still find that now, coaching for 9 years, it's been not the problem position, but when you've got a good one, you've got to hold on to them with everything that you've got.
Did you hate playing there when you had to?
Loved it. It was probably my favorite position. Yeah. In terms of everything in front of you, I could see the game. Got loads of the ball. I wasn't the carnage of centre midfield where I was getting tackled every 15 seconds. So like time to try and create and stuff like that. So yeah, no, I loved it. Obviously defensively was it wasn't my greatest strength and stuff like that, but I used to just try and break wide players' hearts by going forward a lot more than running backwards, and really enjoyed. I felt like I played my best football there in Billy's second spell, I think. So no, loved it. But again, it's another example of for a number of years, I ended up keep going back there for different managers and different eras or different seasons. Sorry, because they're really hard to find. Like good ones are really, really hard to find.
Let me ask you a quick off-topic question, off-piece question. A lot of people on here, and we've discussed this before, say they think Murillo should play central midfield for us as a number 6. And I keep saying no, he's a central defender. I worry he'd lose the ball and things like that because of the way he plays the game. So you've sort of made that journey yourself, although it's left back. Can you see Murillo as a midfielder or not?
I just think if it isn't broken, why try and fix it? I think he had an absolute standout season. You see the rumoured interest and the kind of money that people were speaking about if he was to leave, what the football club would, profit wise, what they'd make. He had a standout season along with a lot of other players, but I think the centre backs relationship and the way that the manager utilised all 3 of them that played most of the games in terms of one coming on was perfect. So I don't know why you changed that.
Just on the Morgan situation, we've discussed it a lot. We haven't really discussed it from the management team side of it. It's a very unusual situation. I can't recall anything like this around legal threats and all that. It must be a tricky one for Nuno and his staff, because I'm sure they'll want clarity. From your coaching point of view, how do you see that situation and the challenge Nuno faces in managing it all?
I just think it's really difficult to have a player. I don't know. As I said, you don't know the ins and outs of the situation. It seems like, obviously, when it gets this far along the line, the club that are in for Morgan and Morgan himself probably wants to take the opportunity. And I think once that happens, I think it's really difficult to have a player at a football club that maybe his heart is elsewhere. He's been amazing, hasn't he? For the football club over the last period of time. He deserves all the accolades he's getting, but if his heart is somewhere else, then I think it's just about really quickly finding the best replacement. I understand the football club and things need to be done properly, etc., from the other side, but they need to be finding a replacement, because whether it's this window or it's next window, it's clear that Morgan feels like other clubs he may have more of an opportunity to win stuff or whatever the reason being. I don't agree with that. I think Forest in a lovely place to keep progressing, but as soon as a player's not 100% in, I think it's really important he solves the situation very quickly. And I can't remember that many times where it's got this far down the line, the player then stays and then as standout seasons and stuff like that. I think it's probably time that they just let it, or not let it happen. They get the most amount of money they can from him and go and replace as quickly as possible.
What's it like, the process of moving clubs when a bigger club comes in for you. I'm not saying Spurs are necessarily a bigger club than Forest particularly, but you move from Yeovil to Forest. Once that interest is there, does it get in your head, and then there has to be a quick resolution either way, do you think, or can you see this dragging on for a while with Morgan?
I think it's dependent on. I think it's dependent on how much Morgan wants to leave, really, because we're all obviously this is all hearsay and paper talk and rumor and stuff like that. He might not be desperate to move. Again, very small example of it, but Forest were interested in me from the season before. It's almost to go against what I just said. Of course, I was interested. I had a loan spell at Yeovil, went back to West Ham, then Forest were interested but couldn't do it because of the size of the squad. And then in January, they made bids for me. Obviously, I was massively interested, but I was also kind of enjoying my football at Yeovil at that point. So I made the decision, even though I probably could have pushed something through in the January, that I made the decision that I wanted to stay till the end of the season at Yeovil. They'd been really good to me, and I trusted that Colin Calderwood and the football club would hopefully still want me at the end of the season, which ended up working out. I'm sure sometimes it doesn't, but at that moment, that season, I wanted to finish the season and finish what I said I'd start with Yeovil before leaving. So I think if Morgan decides that he wants to stay for another year, a period of time, then it can work. But I think as soon as a player, has checked out, even just a small percentage checked out, I think it makes the dynamics of the situation in the changing room, for the coaching staff, for the manager, makes it really difficult.
There are a lot of other good players at the club, as well as Morgan, obviously. I wanted to ask you about Elliot Anderson in particular, a young midfielder, can play in different roles and excel in all of them. I'm not comparing you completely to him, but he's a very good player and you've played that position. So I wanted to get your take on Elliot Anderson.
I think he's wonderful. I mean, when I was at Luton, me and Nath watched him loads. I think they've tried to sign him on loan at Luton a couple of times. I think one time it was really close to happening. I came and watched him play for Newcastle against Forest under-21s about 3 or 4 years ago, and he was the standout player on the pitch. It was just because at that moment it was still only like 21s football, and he hadn't played any first team football. For whatever reason, it didn't happen. He went to Bristol Rovers and absolutely ripped it up. So we definitely got that wrong, not making sure that we signed him. And I think his growth, since going on loan and going back to Newcastle and obviously coming to Forest has been pretty spectacular. He can do everything as a midfielder. There's a lovely balance in midfield in terms of the different profiles and characteristics that Forest have. And I'm sure he's looking forward to another standout season.
What stood out in that game, if you recall, or when you saw him, could you see straight away that he had it or not?
Yeah, the problem is that the Forest goalie got sent off after about 15 seconds. So it was 11v10 the whole game. So they were so dominant that I didn't get to see him but I think he scored twice. He was a captain and completely run the game. Like everything you'd want from a central midfielder. He would attack well, defend well. Like there wasn't a hole in his game at all. So as I said, it was a bit more difficult because Forest were down to 10 men in the game, but you could see that he had personality, like bucket loads of personality in the way that he played. And obviously at Alfreton with 50 people there or whatever, you could hear him as well. So yeah, you kind of knew that he was going to be a star. You just didn't know if he was at that moment, was he ready to play in the Championship? But looking back now, yeah, 100% he was, and he's gone on to do exceptional things.
Henry Winter was on here a few weeks ago, straight after the Euros, where Elliot shone, and he touted him as England's next, number 6 or deep lying midfielder alongside Rice. Then Darren Fletcher, I put the same question to him a couple of days later, and he said, "Oh no, he's number 8." And I think Lewis McGugan might have said he's a 10. What does Chris Cohen say is potentially his best position? Would you say?
I think you look at him and you look at players like Steven Gerrard, who can kind of do any role that the team needs in their moments. I think that's the type of player. I know he's obviously still got a long way to go to be Steven Gerrard, but it's that type of player that can play as a 6, play as an 8, play as a 10. I don't think he needs to be defined. I don't think he needs to play the the same role every week. I think it's making sure that he's in the best position where he helps the team, and he can definitely do all three. He's played off a side as well and done really well at times. So he's capable of changing his game for the position that he's playing. Again, it's another massive added bonus to the manager, knowing that he can put a brilliant player in a number of positions to help the team.
Yeah. Henry mentioned Gerrard as well. It's such a Gerrard about him in terms of mentality and attitude to the game. So yeah, a nice name to be mentioned with, certainly. Just before we move on to talk about Joe Gardner, who Chris coached last season, who's gone on loan to Mansfield with a couple of other young lads, just a word for the Trent navigation. This is coming out on Friday, so our show is in a few hours. Our live show, 7 p.m. It says Kelvin Lewis there on the poster if you're watching on YouTube, but it's Nigel Jempson and potentially one other guest. If I can secure one, but it'll be a good evening, I'm sure. Tickets are only a £5 from gigantic.com. And the other thing that's coming up at the Nav at the weekend is, bear with me, the Rumble Band. If Chris wasn't coaching at Lincoln, maybe this would be for him. I don't know. Soul Motown, Northern Soul. Search gigantic.com for that to check out the Rumble Band. Right, let's talk about Joe Gardner a little bit, Chris. I first approached you to do this interview before he signed for Mansfield, so it's interesting he's gone there. You had him at Lincoln last season. What can you tell us about him as a player?
Yeah, obviously first loan coming to us. I knew Joe a little bit from my time at Forest. Obviously, he was a lot younger than the group that I had, but there was already talk and rumour of how good he was and how good he was going to become. Obviously, we watched him in 21 games in EFL Trophy games, and yeah, it wasn't really a gamble. I spoke to Reedy about him, spoke to people at Forest about him, and gave glowing reports. And he ended up having a brilliant football experience that was filled with ups, downs, and everything else, which will just hold him in really good stead. So, and sometimes that's the way that first loans go. His first game, he got sent off, which is probably the last thing anyone would have, with the way I'm sure you've seen Joe play. The last thing you'd think he would do would lunge and wipe someone out and get sent off 6 minutes into his debut. But he did. So that was like something that he had to overcome. And we've got a really good changing room, and we've got good staff that supported him through that difficult process. He then had an injury, he had some illness, he scored, he came off the bench, he started some games. So he had a really rounded experience, but he's a super talented footballer. If he can get rhythm in terms of number of games, if he can use the experiences from last year, then he can have a brilliant loan spell at Mansfield. You know, it's that second loan, and this is our fear, obviously, with him going to a rival club for us, is that second loan can come sometime. Well, is often, the standout loan compared to the first because of the experiences of the first and the learnings that he's had. But hopefully he enjoyed the experience. I've messaged him a few times. I think he's picked up a small injury. I messaged him the other day. He's picked up a little bit of a knock, I think. I'm not sure if he's back yet, but I'm sure he'll be better for the experience he had last year. And he's a really talented footballer that gets fans off their seats, which everyone loves.
What can you say to a young player when they've had that experience where I guess the blood's pumping, they've made a rash decision? Is there anything you can say to them as a coach after that or not?
No, just make sure you support him. I think the line of players and the line of coaches all ready to, and he'd only been in the building for a couple of weeks or whatever it was. I think he had a couple of weeks before he could play. But just make sure you support him through that experience, and as I said, he will be better for it. We lost a player, we lost a really good player for 3 games, so the team lost out, unfortunately. But he would have gained from that experience, and hopefully he would have gained from the fact that, and had understood straight away what our club and kind of the empathy that we have for the players, and we try and support them through. It's easy to do it when everyone's scoring and playing well, but to support them through that process, hopefully very quickly. So there's a lot of good people at our football club that are ready to try and make him better.
I guess there's always a clamour for Forest fans, or fans in general, for the next young, exciting talents come through, especially attackers. Obviously, Brennan is the best example, and he went to Lincoln and had that loan spell that kicked him on. He had the benefit of coming into a championship team afterwards when the manager picked him. But what would you say to fans in terms of, I guess, patience is probably a buzzword, is it, when we're waiting for that next big talent?
Yeah, I think it's timing, isn't it? A lot of the time, you look at a lot of the opportunities. My opportunity as a young player, you look at a lot of the players that came through during my period at Forest. It was, a lot of the time, it was when team was struggling a little bit for whatever reason, and you start looking around and seeing the way that young players are training or whatever, and you give them the opportunity because things aren't going well, anyway. So I think it was Chris Hughton, was it maybe, that brought Brennan into the team at that time? Was it the start of that season? And then obviously
I think Cooper picked him. I think Chris might have been reluctant because I'm going back in time here. I think he got knockout or someone like that. Yeah.
So he had a really tough start, and Steve came in and the team's bottom of the table, and you're looking and you've got this kid that lights up training every day. I mean, I remember cold calling football managers around the EFL to try and get Brennan a loan move, and I'm sure, and I get it now where I have, under 21s coaches ring me saying, I've got this player, blah, blah, blah. But I was trying to explain to them, this is the only player I've ever cold called anyone for. He's going to be a superstar. So we all knew it. The whole of the academy knew it. It was just maybe that experience, as I've said, going out on loan to Lincoln, and he had a fantastic first loan because he was far too good for that level. He wasn't playing at a level that he should be playing at. That obviously held him in good stead coming back to Forest to have a standout season and help the team get promoted. So I think going back to your question at the start, it has to be patience, because at the moment that timing is not there. Obviously, Zach Abbott got into the team for the cup semi-final, which is an amazing experience for him. But it's going to be really difficult. The team's chasing, Champions League spots. The team's chasing trophies. So for a young player to break in and stay in that football in the Forest football team at this moment in time is going to be really, really difficult. So just patience.
How did the cold calls go? Was it a bit soul destroying or not?
Yeah, he was like fourth on every list apparently. But that's what you say to people when you're about to sign someone else, basically. So he's on our list, but he's not the first one on our list. But as I said, I just said it about Elliot Anderson, didn't I? I went to watch him play, and because 21's football is so different to first team football, for the manager of a football club to go, I agree with you. It is really difficult. Budgets are small, so you can't waste money, etc., etc. So there's multitude of reasons. Everyone liked him as a player. Everyone knew that his talent. But it was just about who was going to take the risk, which we knew wasn't a risk, but from a manager's eyes might have been, and it ended up being Michael Appleton at Lincoln, and we ended up making £50 million on the player that we all knew was going to be brilliant. So everyone won in the end.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know how careers are going to progress, do you? How close do you think you were to making it at West Ham, out of curiosity?
I mean, I played enough games. I played like 25 times or something like that. But it was always a bit part, nearly all as a substitute. And again, a lot of my opportunities came through players getting injured and the team not being in particularly good form and stuff like that. So I knew that I needed to move on. Mark Noble was in the same team as me, that everyone, again, we all knew was going to be the superstar and be there for a number of years, and we just tried to get a little bit of it to help myself get a loan move out and start my career elsewhere.
Let's talk about you and coaching today. You're back at Lincoln. What drew you back, first of all?
Really good club. Supporters are brilliant. Obviously, it's really hard when clubs get massive again, like Forest are now. It becomes a lot more businessy. You try and keep the heart and the soul in it as much as you can. I think Forest have done a really good job with that, but it does become big business. Where at Lincoln, it's obviously a League One club, but still not forgotten the fact that it was a non-league team, just a few years ago. So in terms of the supporters, are brilliant, stick with us every single week, which was a massive draw. The way the football club treated me the first time I was there, in terms of the ownership group, etc. And most importantly, the players were brilliant. The players, from a couple of tougher experiences, not with the players, but in terms of one at Southampton and one at Stoke that didn't last very long. I knew how lucky I was in that moment to be working with players that want to get better every day and are desperate to get to the next level. And it was an easy draw back, alongside being close enough to watch my kids grow up and do all the things that a dad and a husband needs to do as well.
It was interesting hearing you talk about Joe Gardner's first loan, difficult experiences, all that kind of stuff. Was the Southampton one something that burned you in a sense, but you took a lot from, or not, out of curiosity? How do you view that time there?
Loads, yeah, loads. Both experiences, Stoke and Southampton. Yeah, obviously, you would say they're failures because we was there for, I think, 8 games at Southampton. I think it was 7 at Stoke, even though we won quite a few of them. But yeah, it's really easy to think you've cracked it when you're doing all right and you're overachieving as a footy club and the team and the players and stuff like that. But when you're losing games, especially in the Premier League with Southampton, you're losing games, and the pressure comes. It's like, how much do you back yourself as a coach? How much do you back the work that you're doing? And made me ask a lot of questions, and hopefully made me a lot better without trying to sound too podcasty about it. Yeah, I genuinely believe I became a lot better, and especially the Southampton period, them 3 months, I became a much better coach from the learnings.
I see Ryan Yates is on the High Performance podcast. That could have been a High Performance podcast and interview question there, definitely, certainly. Looking at next season, then I was thinking, Birmingham and Wrexham aren't in the league next season. That's good. You've got a good chance. And then I was scrolling through the league table last night. You've still got Cardiff. You've got Luton with Premier League parachute money, I assume, which is nuts. Plymouth, Reading, lots of big clubs. How are you feeling about next season in terms of ambition for Lincoln?
I think it's to build on the last couple of years. We finished 7th the year before last, just missed out in the playoffs. We finished 11th last year, and it's just to keep building in that. We're never going to have, we'll always be in the, until more investment comes in, we'll have a bottom 6 budget, and that's what we've been working with for for the last couple of years, but or a bottom 8 budget. But as I said, the players are brilliant. The players are more than capable of going and play for some of the big teams that they're competing against every single day and going and playing a higher level. So if you start using money and budgets and all that as an excuse, then you'll keep ending up, where the budget tells you should finish. So over the last couple of years, we've overachieved, and we'd be planning to do that again with a great group of players.
I guess it's a nice spot for you as a coach, because I assume you get younger, hungry players who want to develop, or players who are like 29, 30 who probably come to you with a point to prove. So I assume that from a coaching point of view, there's a real opportunity to improve players for you.
Yeah, most definitely. And most definitely. We've got a real blend of really young and really old actually this year, which is, and luckily enough, I've worked with a few of the older ones before. So I have a relationship where they're almost coaching for us a little bit, some of the time, in terms of on-field coaches, because they understand the process, they understand the experiences that the young players are going through. So they're massively important. And then you've got young players that, first and foremost, want to get Lincoln promoted, and secondly, want to, if that can't happen, then they want to get themselves to the next level. They want to go and test themselves in the Championship. So I'm very lucky that everyone at the football club's really, really hungry now. Most importantly, we need to go and get results. It's not a development club. It's not under 21s footy. We need to, get results very quickly in the season. But as I said to you before, it won't be, if we don't, it won't be for a lack of effort from staff or players, which is a lovely feeling. When even when you lose, knowing that everyone's given everything.
Let's just finish with a Forest question then, if you don't mind. You talked about Lincoln. The project is, keep building, keep improving. When you look at Forest, is this season coming probably going to be about the same when you consider, you mentioned the Thursday, Sunday challenge, the more games, the Premier League, it feels like to me, is getting stronger every year, and the promoted clubs are having a go. So in terms of goals and successes for Forest, what do you think that looks like next season?
I think obviously got very close with the FA Cup, but I'd love to see them chase a trophy, whether that's the Conference League, the Europa League, whichever one we end up in, and like the FA Cup and the League Cup. I think obviously making sure that the league, you do everything you can to have a good season. I think it would be amazing. I saw obviously everyone going to Wembley and stuff. The city I actually was out in Nottingham on the day of the semi-final, and it was so quiet. It was ridiculous, because I think pretty much everyone in Nottingham had gone to Wembley. So I think it would be an amazing experience for the supporters. We've had loads of great ones over the last couple of years, obviously playoff final, and then last year, making it into Europe and FA Cup semi-final. I think it would be brilliant for the club to win a trophy, for the younger fans and stuff, to see them win a proper piece of silverware would be an incredible experience.
Certainly would. A lovely note to end on there. If you've enjoyed this, do us a favour, hit like, hit subscribe. If you're a channel member, you get early access to this interview and any of the pre-recorded ones, or sign up for Patreon, or a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify would be lovely. Chris, thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Any final words you want to say to Forest fans or anything like that?
I just enjoy it. Don't take it for granted. It was our 20 odd years, was it, outside in the wilderness, and all them dark times and all that struggle. It was. I'm sure they feel now. I know I feel that now. I take my little boy down whenever I can. It's like, what an amazing experience there. We're getting every Saturday afternoon, every Premier League game, and then now the experience of playing in Europe. Just enjoy it for as long as it can possibly last.
Is your son a Forest fan or a Lincoln fan or someone else?
Forest fan. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Good on him. Right, we'll leave it there. Thanks for Chris's company. Thanks for your company. We'll be back tomorrow, the post-match show after the friendly. But if we don't see you then, hopefully we shall see you soon.